We who believe in freedom, we cannot rest. That's the words of the song getting us started for another episode of We the People, exclusively on KSKQ Community Radio. KSKQ 89.5 FM Ashland, Oregon, KSKQ 94.1 FM Medford, Oregon. We're also streaming live online at kskq.org. I'm Jason HOUK, he, him, his, and it is an honor to be here. And I have a great show. We're going to be talking about homelessness here in Southern Oregon. We're going to be talking about some of the folks that are doing work, helping to alleviate that crisis. And we're going to be talking about a workshop, a summit that's coming up here in a week or two. And I have some experts on the topic here. Very excited to have some of my favorite people in the studio today, because these are folks that are really walking the talk. And it is we have Cass Sinclair. She is the director of Options for Housing, Resources, and Assistance. That's OHRA for everybody. And we also have a member of the OHRA board, Jordan Pease, also with the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library. And we're going to be talking with both of them for the hour here on We the People. And let's get this started. Good morning. Thank you for joining me here today.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Great to be here with you, Jason. Thank you. And thanks for all the great work KSKQ does supporting community events like this.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, we all are kind of help each other here. And that's, what we're here, sharing events and also hopefully inspiring people to participate in them, more than just sharing the information, but giving folks a reason to be part of it. And that's what we're going to hear from you this hour. We're going to be hearing about OHRA and about the workshop and some of the goals that you've created. And so maybe I'll start with you, Cass. You are the director of, as I mentioned, Options for Housing, Resources, and Assistance, and you are really in the trenches when it comes to the homelessness crisis. OHRA manages a lot of community resources and does a lot of work getting people out of homelessness, back into housing, back into jobs. I could list all of the services you do, but maybe I'll have you do it. Cass, welcome to We the People.
Good morning, Jason. Thank you. I'm Cass Sinclair, she, her, hers, and I'm the Executive Director of Opportunities for Housing, Resources, and Assistance. We went and changed the name on you, Jason.
Oh, my. Sorry.
We still go by OHRA, though.
Good. Yes. And in that name, it really encompasses, it covers a lot of territory. So tell us about OHRA, what it is, your mission is, and who you serve.
Great. Our mission is to help people move from crisis to stability. The huge portion, or I'd say the overarching work of what we do, is to help people remove barriers. So we have a 52-room low-barrier shelter that's serving our most chronically unhoused community members. They have 6 months while they're there, and they work alongside of our navigation team. Those navigators are helping them do anything from getting a driver's license, a birth certificate, signing up for Section 8 housing, getting connected to VA services, health insurance, mental health services, you name it. So the navigator really acts as a conduit, helping the people we serve inside shelter to get connected, with the end goal of getting folks permanently housed. So that's the 52-room shelter. And then we also operate the only walk-in resource center in Jackson County. We see about 65 people a day.
Wow.
Yes. We're serving our unhoused community members, and so we serve as a primary mail home for people experiencing homelessness. And we also are serving a lot of our families that are housed but maybe one check away or experiencing a crisis and need help. So a huge piece of what we're doing at OHRA is not only to get folks housed, but to keep our community members housed. We also operate a laundry shower trailer. It varies, operating 2 to 3 days a week. We do about 40 to 60 showers a week, and we work alongside community members that also volunteer there at the laundry shower trailer, helping to provide laundry and sometimes a cup of coffee, a conversation, you name it. And we have navigators that also work alongside and thread throughout all of our programs. Our navigators you might consider like caseworkers. Those are the folks that are there to build those healthy relationships with people we serve so that anybody can walk through the doors, receive services, and they may continue to work alongside that navigator for years to come, even after they're housed, coming in and saying, hey, I've never written a check in my adult life. OHRA also serves as the service provider with the Ashland shelter, providing services for that shelter through April 1st. And then we're the service provider and helping oversee alongside with the volunteers in our community that are running the severe weather shelter. So we're part of that collective community response. And we have volunteers that help also with the Ashland Emergency Shelter with helping out sometimes with meals and things like that. So overarching with all of that, we are a social service hub within the OHRA Center. We also have a federally qualified health center. La Clinica is there providing mental health and medical health services to those we serve in the resource center and the shelter. And then we're also providing space for community partners to come work alongside of the people we serve. So that's sort of the big picture of how we provide services and what we're doing. Lastly, during the emergency order, which Jackson County was part of that emergency order, our staff, navigation staff, got 81 unsheltered, unhoused families permanently housed, and they also provided 103 eviction preventions, and those were to keep our community members housed. So that's just a piece of the work that's going on at OHRA.
Wow, what a comprehensive list. You're meeting people in all places in homelessness, folks that are finding themselves threatened with homelessness. They may still be housed, but reaching out for help with resources, bills, and things. Everything for folks that are chronically homeless and have been homeless for a very long time. You're having to meet a lot of people in different places.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it? Do you? How do you manage? I mean, how do you run it? Is it a volunteer powered? How do you manage all of the labor that goes into something like that?
Well, that is a great question. First of all, I love to say that we literally are meeting people where they're at. So everybody is in a different place, needing different services, and so that's kind of one of our inner mottos, if you will, is meeting people where they're at. So just to kind of back up a little bit, when COVID hit at the end of the 2019-2020 shelter season, we were a staff of 5 at OHRA with a $240,000 a year budget and a mass volunteerism group of about 350 volunteers, like yourself and your organization, volunteers from faith-based communities. We had about 350 volunteers, folks that would come in and spend the night at the shelter and provide meals every day and help with laundry and you name it. And then COVID hit and we lost all of our volunteers. At the same time, we became the first organization in the state of Oregon to receive Project Turnkey funding, and that was a capital grant to purchase that Super 8 hotel. That didn't come with operating dollars, though.
No.
And so now we are almost a 50-person, fully staffed organization, continuing to weave in our volunteers and find places for such an important piece of the organization, which are volunteers. So we have a fully staffed 24/7, 365 shelter, and then we have our navigation staff. We have a small administration team. There's a lot of growth needed there to help manage because we are out kicking the pavement, if you will, for donations and for grants and for this long-term focus that we have as an organization to provide this service in our community. So now we're a $2.6 million organization. So we've grown, I think it was somebody said 1,000% in less than 3 years. So a huge piece of the work that we're doing is sharing with our community the work that we're doing through the Resource Center, that we're a valuable asset to our community, and then also growing the information into our whole full Jackson County, because we do serve Jackson County through the shelter, through the Resource Center, through the programs that we provide, and increasing our donor base into Jackson County and our constituents, and growing those major donors and doing the things that it takes to be a long-term sustainable organization.
Wow. It has been an honor to see OHRA grow and start as like an idea among mainly homeless students back in the day, and they've evolved to this multi-million-dollar organization which is providing so much and managing so many resources. I imagine that takes good leadership, and so that involves try to bring Jordan in a little bit about your board of directors. Who are the folks that serve, and do you find that as your nonprofit, you have a board? Can you tell us a little bit about your board and the folks that are, the decision makers of the organization?
The thought partners.
Yes, there
the
you are.
fiscally responsible body of people that
folks who underline
help do the hard work. And when I say help do the hard work, I'm talking boots on the ground a lot of the times. And so folks like Jordan Pease that are very connected and caring and providing service in our community, bringing our community together. So Jordan Pease, we have folks that have retired out of big banking and understand the finances because there is that fiscal responsibility and oversight. We have folks coming from human resources, from retired school superintendents, accounting professor, people coming out of banking, working in IT in big organizations. And so we have a breadth and scope of knowledge in the room that is fantastic. And then on top of it, these folks have incredible heart and compassion and are drawn to the mission just naturally.
Yeah. And Jordan Pease, you're on the board, and I know we've had you on talking about events at Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library. What inspired you to get involved with OHRA?
Thanks. It's a great organization. We just had our January board meeting last night. I think there was 18 people in the room there, and just the energy and the successes that OHRA has been achieving and enjoying just in the last year or so is just tremendous. So it's really a privilege for me to be among that group doing important work in the community.
Nice. And I guess maybe a question for both of you. I'm kind of jumping around on stuff as we learn about OHRA, and I guess my question is, how do folks usually plug into OHRA? Is it they usually just walk in off the street, or are they through they recommended through other agencies? How do folks usually find you?
All of the above. I think sometimes if folks are receiving services that live in Ashland and maybe the word gets out that, hey, you can receive primary mail home services at OHRA, or we might have grant dollars to help folks. Sometimes we're just even connecting folks to help them if they're experiencing homelessness, get a sleeping bag or a tent or shoes or food. So the other piece of what's happening with all of our social service organizations in Jackson County is that we're all very familiar with each other and work to understand the services that each of us provide so that we can refer to each other. So OHRA receives a lot of referrals from, for example, folks at St. Vincent de Paul that may be seeing somebody that needs help, or another shelter or another service provider. And then alternatively, we're doing the same thing. So we're getting people connected back out into the community for those services. We do also have bilingual, bicultural staff. So sometimes even if we have somebody who is a Spanish speaker and is trying to get connected to Social Security or other services, they can actually meet with a navigator at the site. So there's a lot of referral going on through our continuum of care in the background in our community for all the social service organizations.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Let me just add something to that. For people that might not recognize where OHRA has relocated to, I think a lot of people think of OHRA having a small office next to Safeway on Siskiyou Boulevard in downtown Ashland, but it was former executive director Michelle Arellano and a team that took over a huge state grant at the time in the dark days of the pandemic and acquired the former Super 8 Hotel near Exit 14 on Ashland Street, corner of Washington. And kudos to that group. Cass was part of that too, of course, that through the dark days of the pandemic were able to achieve the funding, do the remodel, which is, I would say, almost done. I know there's another component that we talked about last night. So that's where the facility is, 51 shelter beds there. It's just a great service to the community, and it's located very conveniently for people to get to.
What used to be formerly the Super 8 Hotel, and that is part of a trend where communities are repurposing the hotels and things to provide service. Familiar with the one in Bend, the Bethlehem House, and others. Was there a lot of surprises in inheriting an old hotel?
Yes. Yes, there were. We're still surprised, Jason.
Yes.
So when we got the hotel, it was built in the early 80s, and it did not have it's a 3-story hotel with interfacing halls, which is great for us, but it didn't have an elevator. It didn't have a fire suppression system. The entire door lock system failed. Every single air return, air conditioning, heating unit had to be replaced. And I think we started with about $30,000 worth of capital when we were so lucky to get the building. So we're now nearing the end of a $1.6 million renovation project, and with a second phase right on the heels, where we're getting ready to put in an all-electric commercial kitchen that will be able to provide meals for our guests. But with that, our organization had made a decision long ago that as we move forward, everything that we would do in the building would be electric. So we need an all-new electric air return system and everything. Along with that, so that we have made that, part of our mission now to go forward, to be good stewards of the earth.
Okay. Is your plan to hopefully go to solar, or just you feel that's the most renewable?
We have looked
source?
at solar. We have that. I don't know if for those that have driven by the building, it has that big, thick red tile roof.
It does.
And we've been told that the cost and expense of removing the tiles to be able to install the solar would be more costly, like the cost to benefit ratio. So, we still continue to pencil it out. We would like to go solar. We do need an all new electric panel service to the building to be able to continue to support all those next phases that we want, which is to be able to provide enough electric access in the parking lot so that other providers can come and bring their mobile units to provide services to guests of the shelter and guests at the resource center. So there's still work to be done, but that was a big surprise of getting the building, just the cost, and then being at the tail end of COVID and having the cost of materials and supply go up. I do want to give a plug here because it's just Jerome White and Chris Brown from Architect, as well as John Fields, were just imperative in what they did. John Fields in the oversight as our general contractor just moved mountains for our organization to help us do the best job for the least amount. So just big, huge thanks to them.
We're talking with Cass Sinclair and Jordan Pease about opportunities for housing, resources, and assistance, and also leading up to this Southern Oregon Homeless Summit we'll be talking about here in a moment. And I imagine one of the hardest jobs when you're doing all these different things in the community is keeping the public informed about it. And we know that a couple of major things happened during the summer. One, of course, was the creation of the night lawn over there at the Ashland Police Department. That's not a program you're managing at all. That's not involved over. That's something else. But the other one, of course, was the purchase of the building on Ashland Street, which is serving as the shelter and emergency weather shelter. There was a lot of the whole. The purchase all kind of happened kind of fast, and not a lot of folks were in the loop. So when it happened, there was a lot of like, what's going on? And I imagine your organization had to answer a lot of questions from the public.
We did, and it was interesting. City of Ashland are great community partners, and it was their building. So a lot of the things that happened through the questions the community had really went to the City of Ashland. And then we would help when it would come to how will you operate the building and how will you operate it safely and how is this going to impact the community. But I would say mostly the City of Ashland and their staff were fielding the questions and communicating it as it was their building and we're the service provider.
That's a good point, because it is technically it's a City of Ashland building. It's our building, and OHRA is managing it for us.
Yes.
And yes. So
let me just make a mention of that too. A lot of people won't recognize where that severe weather shelter is located. Formerly, the Coming Attractions theater chain's offices. Prior to that, it was the Ashland Emergency Food Bank. So it's right under the overpass, the railroad overpass there on Ashland Street near Shopping Cart. That's the location of the severe weather shelter.
That makes it convenient having OHRA and the shelter kind of on the same street there, and you keep on going. You could hit the new location of the food bank, and it's all kind of there on the south side of town. Yeah, holding my map upside down. We're talking about we're about to talk about the Southern Oregon Homelessness Summit, because kind of leading in, this could be an opportunity for folks in the community to learn more about the programs that OHRA does, and to ask those questions, not of you, just of you, but of some of the top leaders at our local and state and national levels. And so, yeah, I guess that's my kind of segue. Originally, I understand this summit was planned for the winter or the fall. Is that true?
I wanted to do it in November initially, which would have been about a 3 or 4 month lead time. Cass wisely talked me out of that. So we picked this upcoming weekend, or next weekend. It's February 3rd, 10 to 4 at the Ashland Hills Inn.
Right. And for folks, it is an opportunity to connect with some with yourself. You'll be there, and other local homeless workers, folks that are involved. And we're going to have some folks from the county and don't look at that one. Oops, that's something else. All right. Anyways, we've got a lineup of speakers. Can you talk about some of the folks that will be there?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. We're very excited. And, I'd like to say this whole summit was really born of a conversation with Jordan and myself. And Jordan, being a new board member and being involved in the community, wasn't really zeroed in and part of his wheelhouse, I guess I could say, around the drivers of homelessness. So we started having a conversation and really said, hey, Jordan said, let me, and he can talk about that. But let's put something together that can really be geared towards those of our community members that aren't familiar with homelessness. So we started conceptualizing, Jordan and I and a few others, in a very short period of time to bring this together. This beautiful gift that Jordan can talk about. How it was provided for. But we will have Bryan Guiney from HUD talking about and kind of myth busting, if you will, on the perspectives of homelessness from the national level. We'll also have our state rep, Pam Marsh, and we know, and sort of the underpinnings of this is that our homelessness crisis is really a housing crisis. Yes, there are a lot of other drivers, but Pam will be talking about that from the state level. And then we'll have our keynotes, our lunchtime keynote speaker, Libby Gill, talking about and just, providing talk during lunchtime, the science of hope and why it matters. Then we'll be bringing in Stacy Brubaker. She'll be talking about mental health and racial disparities. She's from the county. We'll have Melanie Doshier from Access, who will talk about the way we all coordinate our care and how we provide services and the services that Access provides. Jason Elzy is the executive director of the Housing Authority of Jackson County, talking about housing and how that is at the Jackson County level and the barriers that he sees. Mary Ferrell is the executive director of Maslow, and she'll be talking about our homeless youth. They provide services for homeless youth. Barbara Johnson will be talking about domestic violence and racial disparities. She's the executive director of Community Works. And then Linda Reid will be talking sort of this very, the city level. What can a city do, and how much leeway does it have when it comes to housing and ending homelessness, when it comes to ordinances and land use and things like that. Linda Reid is the housing specialist for City of Ashland. I'll also be there, and Dennis Slattery is our board president for OHRA, and he'll help moderate that 2-hour panel session that we have. We'll also have 16 of our community partners there providing tabling with their staff and their people there to talk about the services they provide. This is a community response, and that's sort of the crux of what we'd like to do for the summit. So those are the folks that will be speaking at the summit.
Nice. What are the what are the goals of the summit? So I've heard, we're going to talk about the causes of homelessness, and And some are like, oh, we're going to talk about solutions. We're certainly probably not going to solve it, but what do you hope to accomplish?
What we hope to accomplish is really educating, first of all. We hope people come in with a very curious mind to listen to what those drivers are. They're I think understanding, first and foremost, understanding the main causes and drivers of homelessness, which is a lack of affordable or low-income housing, looking at income disparities, looking at the overrepresentation of people who are coming out of domestic violence situations, people who experience racial disparities or come from underserved populations, how homeless youth and this wave of youth that are coming out of foster care experience a greater degree of homelessness, looking at the mental health aspects, and the disparities that come with that, health. And so what we'd like to do is, in that panel, is to take those panel members and allow them to share their information of the services that they provide, but also where do they see the gaps. I mean, as a community, I think right now it's helpful to look at how can we come together as a community response to help solve homelessness. So first and foremost, it's just to unearth and share the drivers.
Right.
And then I think Jordan can talk. You're Jason.
I'm Jason.
Jordan can talk also more about our vision and what we see coming out of it.
Cass, you're just such an excellent spokesperson for these issues. I admire your articulate way to describe these complicated things. I want to give a shout out to one of OHRA's staff, a woman named Jackie Agee, who is the development director for OHRA right now. She took on the task of organizing all the exhibitors at our event, and I just wanted to give her some credit for the work she's been doing to attract so many. When we first conceived of this event, I didn't really imagine we'd get so many people interested in being exhibitors there and tabling and providing information about their agencies. But as Cass just said, there's 16 of them. I don't have that list in front of me, but I also want to mention the website, everything that Cass is talking about, that we're both talking about, the biographies of the presenters, and some more information about the event, which is happening Saturday, February 3rd at Ashland Hills Hotel, 10 to 4. The easiest way to find that website is Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library's website. That is rvml.org. There's a link there at the top of that page that'll take you to, all the events that RVML is producing, but specifically this one, of course, right at the top. Or the other way directly there is this brand that we developed in 2015 called Architects of the New Paradigm. So that's the more direct link to learn about the conferences we're producing. There's more than one coming up. And that's anpconference.com, rvml.org, or anpconference.com. Now that I'm rattling off URLs, let me rattle off another important one. That's OHRA's website, and that's ohrahelps.org. OHRA, OHRA helps.org.
Nice. Talking with Jordan Pease and Cass Sinclair about the upcoming Southern Oregon Homelessness Summit. That is be Saturday, February 3rd. It's from 10 to 4 at the Ashland Hills Hotel. And who are the type of people you'd like to see at this event? Who's invited, and who do you like to fill the room with?
Everyone's invited. There is a $25 entrance fee, and that they will also receive a plated lunch. And then Jordan can talk more about that. This is not, although we are partnering, OHRA is partnering, no part of this is being paid for by OHRA, just to add that. Mm-hmm. It's being paid for by a generous grant. And I'd like Jordan to speak to that. Mm-hmm. But everybody is invited. I think the goal here was when we sat down to talk, so many of the conversations that I have in the community are with concerned community members that maybe think that when OHRA is providing services that somehow we're attracting homelessness. And I always say, the wave is coming. Homelessness is a housing crisis. And, we will continue to see homelessness increase on the West Coast. And Southern Oregon and Jackson County, the reason why we've received funding for rapid rehousing and rental assistance from the governor's emergency order is because we had a 128% increase in homelessness. And so it is on the rise. Mm-hmm. So going back to who we would like, concerned community members that want to learn more, that are curious, that maybe, aren't so close to working with our unhoused community members and our unsheltered folks like you and I are. And so that, born again of that conversation, would be curious, concerned community members that want to know more about the drivers of homelessness and want to come for a day of learning.
I want to speak a little bit more to that too. And in fact, just in this moment, as I'm listening to Cass talking about the wave is coming, that was such a epiphany, such a catalyzer for me when I heard her say that phrase almost casually when we had an early conversation about producing this event. For me, it was an interesting conversation, a very informative conversation I remember having right at the beginning of the pandemic when I called up former Ashland Mayor John Stromberg asking, how can I plug in to help with the issues that the homelessness people are facing in the wake of the pandemic? God, it's hard enough when it's not face masks and hand sanitizers and things like that. So it was John Stromberg had a very long phone conversation, then followed up later with a lunch. This speaking to the wave is coming ideas here, it's solutions that need to be deployed over a long period of time that are ultimately what, as I'm coming to learn these complicated issues, is what's going to solve it. So many of these things, of course, are politically driven, and so it's not a 4-year election cycle kind of a thing. It needs to be a much longer vision that's executed with great diligence. These are John Stromberg's ideas, and he's a person that spent a career working for a think tank called the Rand Corporation, so he's a very systems thinker, and I like to think of myself at that too, and I count myself as very lucky to have mentors and people in my life like John Stromberg who can model those kinds of ways of thinking for me. So I just wanted to add that piece, that there's no quick fixes here. These are things that need to be thought of and carefully planned and most importantly executed over a long-term time horizon.
Wow. And hearing, the wave is coming, that's a really good way to look at it, because, with looking at some of the things nationally, globally, regionally around climate and migration patterns, we are going to see more and more folks coming to the Northwest, to Oregon, and to the Rogue Valley that'll be seeking services. Right now, we're here in Ashland. We house a number of Ukrainian refugees. We're going to see more and more refugees, and not all of them are going to be invited, but they will be here in our community. And to me, I keep thinking it's, we talked about the hotel, and we have a shelter, we have emergency shelter, we have a night lawn. We're providing more shelter space than ever before, but yet when you look out in the community and you see the clear evidence of homelessness around us on every corner, in every abandoned lot, it seems like the problem is so much bigger than us that anything we do, any success we create, will easily get swallowed by the need. What do you think about that, and how do you balance that with knowing that the need is always going to be greater than what you can provide?
I mean, everything you said, yes. So much of a part of the work of what we're doing is, and when you ask who we would like to come to this event, are folks that maybe don't see homelessness every day. It's not as visible, or it hasn't been in the past as visible in Ashland per se as it's been in Medford. And so just educating folks that the wave is coming. And this started 50 years ago. I mean, part of this 50 years ago, when there was a reduction in federal funding for affordable housing, when there were closures of mental health institutions, where you have, then criminalization of folks experiencing mental health crisis. And then you have, coming from that, a wave of children that were then in foster care that are aging out of foster care now. And so you have this whole cascading event on top of the fact that we live in a place where, we have a lot of land use restrictions. I was just at a Medford Chamber event with the speaker talking about the 33 million acres we have in the state of Oregon, but only about 350,000 acres centers are residential. And so if you really look at land use and where the constriction is around that, it doesn't give cities a lot of leeway, like, hey, let's go just take this field and build affordable housing or low-income housing. And so the way I look at it from our view, which is literally boots on the ground at OHRA, the way we serve folks, sometimes right before they may be going over the cliff, if you will, is that the work that we're doing, I feel the work that my staff and navigation do works because not only do we get folks housed, but that folks can still walk through that open walk-in resource center and communicate with their navigator if they are having problems with their housing. Like I said, learning how to write or check, or fearing that they may be facing eviction. They have that navigator, which sometimes is just their one person. So when I look at all the project turnkey sites, there were 19 sites originally. We're the only organization of those first 19 that has a walk-in resource center. So and everybody's doing fantastic work at these project turnkey sites. I mean, they are doing amazing work. And we don't get paid to have an open resource center, right? Mm-hmm. That's the part where we're out scratching for grants and looking for dollars to support that. But I do think that having a walk-in resource center is so important in a community because anybody can walk through your doors. And then especially that symbiotic relationship that happens with our organization around the walk-in resource center and shelter. So shelter, they're there for 6 months. We're navigating alongside of them. We get them housed. And then even after they're housed, they can still come in and receive services. A lot of organizations, because it's tough with nonprofit, you're trying to raise dollars to just keep your doors open. They provide navigation and casework services for their folks that are in their shelters. But once that person out of their shelter is housed, they don't have access anymore to a caseworker. And so sometimes, if you're newly housed, you've been chronically unhoused your whole life, you need to build your skill set, or you need some help along the way with jobs and how to stay housed. That's where I think sometimes maybe our structure falls short. So I can only say to our N=1 that's what I believe. For this long answer to your question, is it gives me hope. It gives me hope that at least in our community, making our impact on our community, that we have a successful model that is working. And yes, it is one person at a time sometimes. Yeah.
I just want to jump in on that too and underscore what I could see as a really critical point about what OHRA's services are, and it's the resource navigators, the caseworkers. And I know Cass just spoke some about that, but once I discovered that, generically, OHRA can be seen as a homelessness shelter, and all the baggage that comes along with that kind of a moniker or label. But I just really wanted to put another spotlight again, and Cass just spoke to it, but this idea of resource navigators, caseworkers that remain available, champions for people that need to have these kind of basic living skills learned and relearned and impressed upon them and these kinds of things. So once I really discovered that there's the need for that and how well OHRA is being able to achieve those kinds of services, I like to think that it becomes models for other organizations like OHRA around the country and the world to employ that model, because that's in my still lay understanding of how these things work, that's really the key to get people out of the cycle of homelessness, is giving those life skills and those kinds of services and that mentoring and championing.
I wanted to dovetail onto that as well. That is another piece of what we're doing, Jason, is reiterating to our community that a huge percentage of the people that we're serving in the resource center are families. And so starting at that family level, just keeping families housed before they move into that cyclical generational potential that could happen when a family becomes unhoused, and then can cause perpetual trouble for generations to come and trauma. And so that is an important piece that happens at the resource center, are the families that we serve to keep them housed and to help them.
Right. We're talking with Cass Sinclair and Jordan Pease about OHRA and the upcoming Homeless Summit. And you're listening to KSKQ Community Radio. And I got to do a quick underwriting. remind folks that KSKQ recognizes the nonprofit community support of the Klamath-Siskiyou Wildland Center. KS Wild is dedicated to partnering with the individuals and communities to stand up for the forests, the waters, and wildlife of Southern Oregon and Northern California, ensuring a legacy of clean water, wild rivers, and towering ancient forests. Details about forest and river conservation and the Rogue River Keeper program are at kswild.org. And I also want to thank the support of El Tapatio Mexican Restaurant. El Tapatio has been in our community since 1997. They're open Monday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in or take out at 1633 Highway 99 North in Ashland. And more information at 541-488-2276. I want to thank all of our underwriters for supporting community radio. And we're continuing our talk with Cass and Jordan. And I wanted to talk about your sponsoring organizations because while folks like you are in the trenches, it takes your network of organizations that are like force multipliers for you. And I'm talking about like the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and ANPconferences.com. This Architects of the New Paradigm. So I wanted to talk about some of the organizing sponsors and give you a chance to talk about some of those projects too. Where's the connection between RVML and homelessness?
Yeah. Well, that's where maybe the intermediary, you might say, is this thing that I mentioned at the top of the hour here. It's called Architects of the New Paradigm Conference Series. This is an idea that we developed in 2015 at RVML as a way to extend the services that we provide. So it's obviously a conference series, and we've produced about, depending on how you count them, maybe about a dozen of those since 2015. It was really hard in 2020 to have to cancel the event that we had already completely conceived of and planned and organized up in Seattle, Washington. That whole event just never even happened. It was so hard for us to have to we had just started selling tickets, so then to be emailing people to refund their tickets. Anyway, so answering the question about how does a homelessness summit have anything to do with a metaphysical library? Well, I think a lot of people listening know the services of RVML. We've been doing it since 2002 here in Ashland. And so just briefly, it's a brick and mortar lending library. And we like to say just like a real library with Dewey Decimal and library cards and overdue fees and all that kind of stuff. In addition to that, in, about 2008, we took over this thing called Media Exchange, which has been a real great asset to our organization. So much of the materials in our library are donated by the Ashland community, about almost all of it, really. We don't really have an acquisitions budget per se. So, of course, things get donated by Ashlanders that have the subject isn't appropriate to put in a metaphysical, spiritual, paranormal kind of a lending library. So this thing called Media Exchange has evolved and grown. And so that's books on all subjects that we basically just give away. And we're able to give them away and not enforce any kind of an exchange because, again, the generosity of Ashland. It just astonishes me that every week in year 23, truckloads of books still come from Little Ashland. 22,000 population has enough books to share that we then cycle back into the community. So that's what Media Exchange is about. Then, of course, we do our Tuesday lecture series. We've been doing that almost all of the last 23 years, Tuesdays. I think there's over 1,000 recordings on our YouTube channel, all free. And that's mostly people in the local community that have services or interesting things to talk about. We give them a platform to do that. Occasionally, we bring in speakers from other areas, organize many conferences at the college, for example, too, for larger audiences. Our current event space seats about 40 people, and the Tuesday lectures continue. And people can learn about that on our event calendar, rvml.org. And I kind of wandered off the subject. ANP conference. So, so that brand, and we're very protective of how that brand has a what would you say, kind of a boundary around the kinds of subjects that we tackle there. But they're all, we like to think, well, this word metaphysical, meta, above, beyond. So I like this phrase and this idea of meta issues. So, different kinds of and of course, these are all debatable and controversial kinds of ideas, and I seem like I live in those kinds of controversies my whole career. So I'm very comfortable with the controversies, I guess. Not to say that I enjoy it, but familiar to it. So we tackle subjects at Architects of the New Paradigm conferences that we see as meta issues. And it really is all ultimately about, advancing humanity's comfort and safety and joy and prosperity and all those kinds of things. So at the end of the day, even though it seems to be mired in controversy, what's the ultimate goal? It's to uplift and raise and empower people and societies that are otherwise not being prosperous. I'm not saying this very well this morning, but I think through my too many words, I'm getting the idea across. So that's what ANP conference series is about. And so we decided to tackle homelessness. Can I just give another plug for our next conference coming up?
Yes.
I'm joking with my friends as if the conference topics that we usually do for ANP aren't challenging enough to market. Now we're tackling homelessness, and in March we're going to do another conference summit at the same location, Ashland Hills Hotel, on human trafficking, because like homelessness, these are the kinds of things that happen right under our noses in a place like Ashland, and a lot of us don't even realize the prevalence of these kinds of unfortunate circumstances that people find themselves in. So tough subjects, but necessary subjects, in our view, kind of meta issues, meta subjects that addressed properly and redressed. We like to think in an idealistic way, admittedly, that everybody gets benefit.
Wow. And how can people find out more, or maybe plug in with that? With your network and conferences, and again, RVML.org and what I'm seeing, Love Ashland Network. That's something else.
Well, RVML.org is the library's URL. It's a $30 membership, unlimited checkouts. We keep that very low barrier for people. It's really just an administrative fee, the $30. No fees to use the lending library, the media exchange, or to attend our events. Almost all the events we've organized over the last 20 years have been free admission, and we're happy to do that, and people, of course, appreciate that. There's this other thing that's not directly connected to RVML or the conference that I co-founded with a girlfriend in 2008. I would love to say her name here, but she has demanded that she remains anonymous, which I respect greatly. So that organization is called Love Ashland Network. I almost never talk about it. People will know the Brad Pitt film called Fight Club.
Yep.
Fight Club. What is the first rule of Fight Club?
Don't talk about Fight Club.
This is how we've... This might be the first time ever I've publicly spoken about what we do with Love Ashland Network. Because of that reason, I printed off a portion of the mission statement from the website for Love Ashland Network, which is loveashland.org. So just quoting a couple sentences here, people can go to loveashland.org and read this in toto. A network of anonymous Ashlanders concerned with the comfort and well-being of low-income residents of our city, inspired by the ideas of random acts of kindness, radical gratitude, think globally, act locally. We are ordinary people volunteering our time and resources in the spirit of anonymous giving. This is the tie-in to Fight Club. There's a real power when you do these kinds of services and don't... And do it anonymously. And then further down in that mission description, it has a mysterious and rebel quality distinct from traditional charity. So that's almost all I want to say about loveashland.org, encouraging people to go to the website and learn more about what's going on there. Primarily, I'll say this. Well, that website was the very first website I ever built. Something went haywire with it about, 5 years ago, and so it lay dormant for quite a while, but I had my webmaster kind of resurrect it. So that website looks a little, vacant, because it doesn't have all the stuff that had it on it initially. So one of the main programs that unfortunately we lost the funding for in 2011, but I really enjoyed doing it, and some of the people that we're trying to serve will remember. So at the South Valley Human Resource Office there, near where Ashland Cinemas used to be, we did a token-operated vending machine in the lobby of that building. I couldn't believe we talked our way into a state office without any kind of insurance or anything, and was able to provide those services for as long as we did. I really enjoyed doing that. It was well-funded at the time, and so that was, again, a token-operated vending machine. People talk about low barrier. Anybody that walked in there and asked for tokens would be given. I think we had limited it to 4.
Right.
And we had about, 45 different items, personal care items in a vending machine that was distributed that way. It was a really cool thing.
I love that, because so few opportunities for a person to decide what they want, and shop and get the items you need, and it's like toiletries and razors and
primarily toiletries and things like that personal
you need
care
every day,
because it speaks to the mission statement that comfort and well-being of Ashland residents. So if you
right.
Yeah.
Well, if you need chapstick or you need a Band-Aid and you don't have one, you're really hurting.
I was going to use tampons as the example, but I felt uncomfortable using that example.
That's a great example.
And then we also gave, and it was so fun doing it, and the generosity of the people that we sought the resources from. Walmart, of all people. We did warm clothing drives in the wintertime and back to school supplies in the fall. And boy, this one particular person who over at Walmart in Medford just laid it on us. So notebooks and pens and pencils and all that kind of stuff. It was so great. And then to give them to the kids, it was just so beautiful to see those kids walking out of there with a backpack full of stuff. So
that's what I've discovered, is there's a lot of people that want to help. They don't know how to help, or they only want to help in a way that they're comfortable.
Yes.
And so that's where organizations like yourselves
Jason,
can plug in
people
where they're at.
Thank you for saying it that way. Excuse me for interrupting. I just want to get an opportunity to echo what you just said. So much about what we just talked about, the Love Ashland Network, is exactly about that. How can people plug in? It's also exactly what Cass was saying a few minutes ago, just to summarize it again, about who's invited to participate in the conference. It's everybody, but it's specifically people who are concerned, are nervous about stepping out publicly or anonymously, don't know where to plug in, don't understand the complexities of the issues, don't want to squander their own time and resources, and want to deploy it as best they can. And so these are the kinds of things that I like to help inspire people to do and empower them to do it. One last thing about Love Ashland Network is I'm trying to be careful about the don't talk about Fight Club idea here too much, but we've been approached over the years. That was all founded in 2008. Love Ashland Network I'm speaking about, with people have really interesting ideas and have no way to get them off the ground. So there's an email address on that website if people want to contact us and propose wild brainstorm ideas. This gets to the mysterious and rebel quality. And I don't want to say much more on that. I'd love to. I already said too much about the kinds of things we've been achieving. But it's just really fun to be able to, people's little pet projects. Oh, and I'm so tempted to give some examples, but I just won't. Honoring the idea of those people wanting to stay anonymous and doing it, and really valuing the idea about the anonymity gives it a lot more power, I've discovered.
Right. We got a couple minutes left with Jordan and Cass here. Wanted to quickly remind folks about the Southern Oregon Homelessness Summit. That's going to be Saturday, February 3rd from 10 to 4 at the Ashland Hills Hotel. And as you mentioned, there's a $25 fee to participate. It does include lunch. There was some feedback. $25. That's prohibits folks. But almost immediately was then folks saying, "Hey, I would donate." So I know if anyone wants to attend, and then if $25 is the problem, they can email Jason at kskq.org, and we could plug them in with a sponsor.
Wow, thank you, Jason.
Yeah. So I'd hate for anyone that wanted to attend and couldn't for whatever reason not to. So, and I think we will there will be a lot going on. The agenda looks pretty full, including the panel, which I'm hoping will be able to really dive into some of the local issues, and folks can really get some of their questions answered, because I know folks have a lot of questions and concerns and ideas too. We're not, we don't always listen to people like we should, and so I hope that folks with good ideas are listened to. And again, for full disclosure, our group Jobs with Justice will be there at tabling and talking about the piecemeal and how folks can plug in, because is the volunteers that make all this happen. If it wasn't for volunteers stepping up, none of these programs would be working. Not ours, not the food bank, not yours, Jordan. This can only happen if people support it, and so.
Like you're doing right now, Jason. Yeah. Thank you. And kudos again to you and your wife, Vanessa, who've done just so much in the trenches with the meal and Southern Oregon Jobs with Justice. It's almost a mysterious and rebel quality what you guys are doing as well, because you're so in the trenches with it all, thanklessly, or I shouldn't say, not looking for the recognition, just doing it.
Yes, I've been told we should do more promotion and PR, but we're working too hard to stop and do that. But now I'm like inspired, because now I'd like to plug in with the conferences stuff, because we want to do something around Independent Media Week, and we've got speakers we'd love to bring, and so maybe we can start working together better.
We have actually. You and I produced an event. What's the man's name? Came up from.
Mickey Huff.
Yes.
Mickey Huff. Yeah, he's with Project Censored.
Project Censored.
Yeah,
yes.
He's a great speaker. We're hoping to bring him back.
And a great project.
Yeah. Yep. And again, Cass, if folks want to learn, or where do we find out about this event?
You can go to the RVML website or OHRAhelps.org. And if folks are interested in volunteer opportunities at OHRA, please go to the OHRAhelps.org website, and there's a link there for you to send an email to our volunteer coordinator, who is a volunteer. Right.
What an important role, that volunteer coordinator. And there's a lot of different things going on. People are doing a lot of things around food and basic stuff. There's a lot of wraparound services, and so people can kind of like we were saying, plug in where you're comfortable, and even if it's just dropping used clothing off at Pony Espresso, there's lots of ways you can help out. Yeah. And
one more piece that I just want to reinforce that Cass had said earlier about how this conference is being produced and whose monies are used for it. Fortunately, I have a way to get, these are not public monies. This is not OHRA's monies. This is not state monies at all. The $25 admission fee really is basically covering the lunch that Ashland Hills Hotels is going to provide. So it's really a free event, effectively, with the cost of the lunch. We just couldn't give it completely away for free. But the point I wanted to emphasize was this is basically funded from a private foundation in Marin County, California.
Right. Yes, that's important to know, because it's not a money-making venture. This is just
almost all of us are volunteering. None of the important point. None of the speakers are being paid. I tried to pay them, but some of them can't be paid.
I think it's real important to know, because folks may see something of that like the high quality of the literature and the the flyers. Think, these folks must all be getting paid to be here. That's great to know.
Not at all.
Oh, good. Okay, it's important to know. Just,
and they're all very eagerly volunteering their time, too, I must add.
Oh, good.
Bryan Guiney, in particular, coming from Portland, Oregon, he is gung-ho to educate the Ashland audience.
And he's with the Housing and Urban...
HUD, yes.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing from him. I hope that we don't have a crisis that keeps him away. You never know.
We had a couple of Zoom calls, planning this and getting all the speakers to get to know each other and talk about their subjects, and I was just so impressed with Bryan Guiney on those Zoom calls.
Good. Any last words, Cass? We've just got a minute or two.
I just want to thank you, Jason, and thank you for all the work you do in our community.
Thank
you for the communication back and forth. I know that a lot of us, including your organization and ours, are wrapping around some of the same folks. So being able to communicate about that is great.
Right,
thank you.
and every solution to homelessness will be an individual solution, because every person is homeless for their own reasons. Hopefully we can work together and really make some changes in 2024, because as you mentioned, it's not going to get better, and there's and I'm worried we'll probably learn at this conference there's no cavalry coming from over the hill, so it is kind of just us working on these things. So